there are enough regular people, so to speak, in an entertaining way.
Yeah.
Because there are things that you can take and you can, turn the volume up all the way up, and it will be very, very entertaining. But I don't think there are enough regular people, like you said, living single. It was regular, but
Yeah.
it was entertaining. And you have that diverse cast, and they would find themselves in different situations. And another, I would say, regular TV show, a regular person was Martin. Like, yeah, he was over the top, but a lot of all of those characters, you identify with it. And so for me, writing screenplays, and the advice that I got was, for when you're writing characters, make sure that they're relatable and that you can identify with them. And so that means that you could take whatever person you want to make, you can make them just the meanest person in the world, but make sure that either you've come across them, you know them, they might be in your family. It has something, because with those shows that resonate, it's because we identify with them on a real level. We might not ever have those close bonds, but it might be, hey, I met somebody like that. I used to work with somebody like that. Or
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those things, or a chance encounter, or I had a conversation. It's one of those things. But I think that's what we need to get back to. Like, all that extra stuff is great, but that real authentic type characters, I think, will work, especially in today's age.
I
Interesting.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with both of you guys. Just to kind of piggyback off of both points, especially you, Izzy, like a Southern girl. I grew up picking, like having to snap the string beans and stuff,
Yeah.
and then going down to the end of the lane. That's what my folks called it. Like, not even the driveway. They'd be like, go to the end of the lane. But but like I was an array of things even as a little girl. But now that I think about it, and I just thought about it when you were talking, it's just I can't think of any characters that truly spoke to who I was like as a kid. Like, here I am, kind of in a sense like a black sheep. Whereas like I like kind of what you said with the Green Day, I was Britney Spears down to the socks, and then like you hear like little comments from family and stuff,
Yeah.
like they don't like, I don't want to say they don't mean no harm, because words have meaning, and I think, yeah, but that's a that's another story. But it's like having people that's like, nah, I'm gonna buy you some this because you ain't gonna grow up just listening to them white people,
Right.
like, you know what I mean? And it's just like, but I love Britney Spears, I love Instinct, I love Backstreet Boys,
And you
um
should never have to apologize for liking music. It's just,
exactly.
you like what you like. We all don't have to be bumping Tupac and Biggie and hardcore rap all day,
All the
every day.
time.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, whose
I think
fault
that's
is
what
that
it
though?
I think though what we're missing in the characters is versatility. Like, I can be all these things at once. Like, I can lay out the 10 crack commandments for you, but I can also, you know, sing oops I did it again. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's like a lot of these characters are missing the versatility. And then even down to like what we were I think we kind of offline about this before, is I didn't watch a lot of the iconic black movies, so to speak, as a child. Like, it wasn't until college that I saw Belly, and I was like, oh wow, like this is what everybody's talking about, or Boys in the Hood, and that's not to say that that wasn't being played in my household, because it was, but I was in the back reading a book or writing or doing something, like I don't know, like, and kind of what you said about like the violence, Izzy, about power. Like,
Mm.
and even to this day, I don't necessarily believe that things are just a movie or just TV shows. I've always felt like, okay, if I'm constantly consuming all of this negativity in a sense, like I told y'all earlier, like those things weigh on me. So I kind of like strayed away from some of those. Like, as a kid, I was always just like more like the hopeless romantic. Like, I could tell you about Love and Basketball and Brown Sugar all day long, you know? But Boys in the Hood and things, like I would just be like, this is just too much. Like this is sad. I don't want to see us dying. Like, I so
Wow.
like
No, that's deep because sitting here hearing you is dawning on me that we don't relate to these characters because maybe we didn't write these characters. Maybe
that's true.
we're being projected on a stereotype and a lifestyle that we actually don't live. And maybe that's where the stress comes from because I tell you, like, watching The Wire stresses me out. And granted, so growing up, there was that, don't go that side of the neighborhood, or like my parents, back in the day, we had our braids and our bandana and our hoop earrings, right? Well, for me, we did like 2000-ish. And
Yeah.
my mom's like, don't wear black bandana, don't wear a red one because it's associated with gangs, right? But
Mhm.
let TV tell it that it's just something that we live and breathe because of the color of our skin. That's something that is automatically assumed as, oh, your mom, you're born in the 80s. She must have been on crack. Like, no, black people are educated. Black people,
Yeah.
they come from two-parent households. Not all black people, but not all white people either. So, but we
Hmm.
put in this box, like Gary was saying, and I think that's reflected on television.
Yeah, I think
Very inaccurate.
yeah, I think one of the biggest things is the like allowing just the like what's shown on TV to go unchecked or to go
Yeah.
without explanation. That's a big problem because a lot of times people are watching these shows and these shows are raising them and they're forming their ideas about how the world is off of what you were
Hmm.
saying, and that is a very very dangerous way to live because even if you take
Mm.
something for romantic relationships, if a little girl is always watching, I guess, romantic. I'll take two sides of it. Always watching romantic things, and it's supposed to be perfect, and that's what she's gonna look for, and that's
Yeah.
super. That's super unrealistic, and it's detrimental to her relationship health and her emotional health. And then if you take it on the other side, if all she's seeing is like a very combative relationship and they're always fighting and arguing, but right after the argument he was like, oh baby, I'm sorry, and she sees that, then that's how she's going to process it. But for me, I take it back because I grew up in the hood, but I'm not of the hood. So there was all of this craziness going on outside, and I experienced it, meaning I was living in it and I was living around it. But once I got home, it was a bubble, and I give my mom all the credit in the world. I don't know how she did it, but it was a bubble. So she allowed us to know what was going on. But once we stepped inside, it was a whole nother world. And there were rules, there were regulations, and there was a solid foundation. Now, was she able to give me everything that I absolutely needed? No, but she provided a very stable foundation for me. And I think that's why I'm able to take in, whether it be gratuitous violence, whether it be foolishness, whether it be women cussing out men and men cussing out women, I'm able to take all of that in and it doesn't stay with me. So I do understand with you, Shanique, and you, Izzy, about how like you take things in and like it disturbs you. But I've never had that experience because again, I look at it and it's just like, okay, that's just what it was. That is a world all into itself.
Hmm.
And kind of to add to that, I love what you said about the romantic relationships because I mean, man, listen, I like now at 27, I am finding my way back to like I guess like my authentic true self, like what it is that Shanique likes, what do I love, like without any outside influence. And I'll say, like, I definitely looked to television relationships. I was like, yo, this is the standard. Like, this is how it's supposed to be. You know what I mean? Because I didn't really see that. I didn't see what I saw on TV. I didn't see it with adults in my life, so to speak. So I didn't see relationships how they looked on TV look like that in real life. So I was like, oh man, it again goes to that escapism. I'm like, well, this is how it is on the TV, so this is what I need to be doing, or, this is how I need to approach relationships. And then, like, I just think one day I had an epiphany and I was like, actually, like, all of this is a lie. Like, this is not real. This is fake. Or, like, even down to like the characters, it's certain characters that I love so much, but then, like they do with a lot of Black women characters, is they base her story around love or around a man. And it's like, oh, you can have it all. It's either or. Like, you can have it all and have no man, or you can have a little bit and have a man. And I'm like, what is this? Like, how come all of these characters, like, for instance, like, I love Joan from Girlfriends. I love Joan so much. Like, she's one of my favorite characters. But then I look at how successful she was and how she just couldn't keep a man, or, I think a lot of that is like art imitating life. That's like the reality. That's what Black women are told from an early age. Like, you have to dilute yourself, or you have to do this, like, or you need to be cooking so you could keep him, and like all of these crazy stuff. So it's like, maybe I haven't seen it, and maybe I didn't see it in the shows growing up, because we're not where we are now. You know what I mean? We're not like, so like, I'm gonna do it. You know what I mean? I think in that sense, it kind of like was like art imitating life. So now, knowing what we know, we can create characters whose sole focus isn't around a relationship or a man, or like making you feel like, a lot of these shows just made you feel like I'm I'm not good enough if I don't have it all. You know what I mean? Where in reality, you're not gonna have it all.
But where do you draw that line? So, Gary, you talked about how you use TV as an escape, right? You don't really draw aspects of it from it to build your life. And Shanique, you're saying that you for different types of representation. So is there a social responsibility for people creating content to reflect those things? Or is it strictly entertainment and say, hey, you're an adult, you need to rationalize and understand this is fictitious,
Yeah.
Like, where does that responsibility lie?
The responsibility, I feel, lies in who's consuming it. So if you are an adult, it's your responsibility to understand this is somebody's perspective. And if you identify with it, great, but this isn't the narrative that you have to live your life by. And if it's a child consuming it, then it's up to the guardian, parent, whoever, to have a conversation to find out how that child is processing. And then I'm also a big believer in, we should take it back to the days where kids weren't allowed to watch certain things. I think we've gotten away from that because there's so many shows on the streaming and Disney and Netflix and Hulu and all of this stuff, and we leave kids to their own devices when stuff needs to be heavily monitored so that you understand how they're processing. You're understanding what they're taking in and what it means to them, and all of those things. But I feel as an artist, we don't necessarily have to have a social responsibility. If that's a story that we want to tell, then we can be authentic to that story. If it's something far left field that we want to tell, then we should be able to tell it. But if you have those conversations, whether you are an adult, and definitely if you're a child, that helps because you can put whatever you want out there. But if you have that bubble, so to speak, it doesn't really matter what you put out there because you're going to take it in and go, oh, I appreciated that. That was a really cool story. Or no, I really didn't like that story.
Yeah, that's interesting. I do agree with that. But what do y'all think about the parental ratings? Like, if there really wasn't an expectation from society, not as a creator, would we have those parental ratings, the guidelines that flash up, before the show or the TV?
I was gonna say to speak to what Gary mentioned earlier about people allowing like the TV shows or the characters to raise them in a sense. I think I mean, because of course, like the ratings are there, but everybody's household could be different when it comes to monitoring. Like what I mentioned to you guys earlier, like I didn't even have the chance to sneak and watch BET Uncut. So I'm just like, I don't know what's that. Like, like when I go to school and my friends are talking about it, I'm like, I don't know what that is. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but it's just like, it's kind of like my cousin. She's 12. She was staying with me for like a little over a month. And she discovered Moesha while she was with me. And it warmed my heart because she watches a lot of YouTube, which is like just a different lane for me. And I'm, I try not to be that older cousin that's like, oh my God, like I don't want to be one of those older people that's like, back in my day, we ain't had you. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so, I watched it and I was just like, this is weird. Like deep, like the stuff that she was consuming on YouTube is literally, to me, like we had a very deep discussion and it warms my heart that we could, but I had to tell her like, this isn't a lot. Like a lot of this, like YouTube may seem like real life, but a lot of this is like for clout. Is like YouTube. I had to let her know. I'm like, YouTube is kind of check once you get to like a certain amount of views. So people are doing some of this stuff. And I'm not saying everybody. This is not to bash YouTube or anything like that.
Scripted.
It's very scripted. But then on the flip end, she watched Moesha, and I was kind of like eavesdropping. I heard her on like the phone with one of her best friends. She was like, "Girl, have you heard of this show called Moesha? It's so good." Like, and then we literally had a conversation. She was like, Nikki, I don't have any shows on TV like Moesha that show what it's like being a teenager, because she's about to step into her teen years, and she was like, y'all had That's So Raven, y'all, because I'd be having her watch shows with me, and she's like, y'all have all of this stuff, and she was like, I watch YouTube because that's all I have. Like, I don't really have like, because she's kind of in that middle ground where she's like, I don't want to watch cartoons, I'm too old for cartoons. I'm like, girl, that's also a different generation, because no matter how old I get, I'm not gonna be tired of cartoons. I just was like, dang, like, so it's sad, like just hearing from her, a child's perspective, say we don't have stuff like this to watch. It kind of like broke my heart, because it's like, dang, like they don't have any shows just that like coming of age, like for Black kids specifically.